some reporters did ask Biden about the border crisis, we needed answers on a lot of other things as well. Biden's proposal to raise taxes, create an AOC-inspired green economy, schools reopening and teachers' unions, and so much more. Joining me now with the questions they would have asked, Fox News contributor Leo Terrell and Fox Nation host Tommy Lahren. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to this one myself. All right, Leo, what would you have asked?
This is how I do it, Judge. I have a couple of questions for you. One, you play the race card on this Georgia law. Why do you keep saying Jim Crow laws exist when all Georgians are trying to do is get voters' ID? That applies to all people. Why do you constantly play the race card? Number two, President Biden, you talk about following the science. Well, why don't you open the schools? Is it the fact that because you receive over $250,000 from the teacher unions, they control you, or the unions controlling you? And finally, President Biden, you lied to the American public when you said more illegal aliens are going back to their home country. That is a lie. Show me your evidence. You cannot lie to the American people.
Okay, Tommy?
You know, I will pick up where Leo left off on the border crisis, because although he was asked some questions, there were some questions that weren't asked that I certainly would love to ask, because I've been to the border several times, and I wish Joe Biden would tell us how many illegal immigrants he's willing to welcome in. You know, he was so flattered that illegal aliens wanted to come into this country because he is a nice guy. So I would ask Joe, how many are you willing to take? 100,000 are coming a month. How many more do you want? 200,000, 300,000? We're on pace for 1 million this year. Why not make it 2 million, 3 million, 4 million? How many illegal immigrants are you willing to bring into our country and hide in the shadows? And furthermore, I would ask, how much are we spending as taxpayers to house these people, to care for these people? And what lengths do Border Patrol have to go to babysit them? And how many drugs and human traffickers and sex traffickers are coming across our border while you are paying attention to having Border Patrol pay attention to these unaccompanied minors that are surging across our border in record numbers? But also, I would ask him about the Keystone Pipeline that he canceled, because we were supposed to have a replacement with these so-called green new jobs. You know, as a South Dakotan, as someone who traveled to Phillips, South Dakota just a couple of weeks ago, I know the folks there are really wondering when those green jobs are coming, because as of yet, they haven't really gotten many answers on that. So, Joe, they're wondering where their jobs are.
Well, you know, the amazing part of it, Leo, is that they were so gingerly with the asking of the questions, and everything seems to come down to the left. As everything is racist. We're constantly reminded of how racist we are. Even voter ID is all about racism. I mean, it's like, I'm honestly, it's nonstop.
You're absolutely right. Everything is race card. Race card, because they divide us in this country with the race card. No facts, just racist. Every American knows that asking for a voter ID applies to all people regardless of race or color. But you're right. Those questions asked by the left-wing media, and not one single question from Fox, they were lollipop, they were ice cream. Donald Trump took a beating by that left-wing media, and he answered every question. But Joe Biden, with his cue cards, was handed a softball, Democratic, basically press conference.
You know, Tommy, one of the things I noticed was that I actually counted it. It took him 7 minutes to answer a question. And by the time he got to the end of his answer, 7 minutes later, I forgot what the question was. And I'm pretty good at this.
Well, I think he probably forgot what the question was too, but when you're looking at notes and you're looking on the reporters that you're going to call to, and you have to look at your notes for the talking points, and you're the President of the United States, not only is that sad, it makes the United States of America look incredibly weak, but I'm not surprised. It was about a 62-minute press conference. He answered about 10 questions, and he stalled in between. He lost his train of thought several times. He was half lucid throughout the entire press conference. And again, going back to the notes, imagine if President Trump had notes to that extent and only called on people from Fox News or One American News or Newsmax. He would absolutely be slaughtered by the media. But then the media, their coverage after the press conference, they couldn't even admit that he was glazed and confused. They had to say how wonderful he is, what a nice guy. At the end of the day, he had to look down at his notes. He didn't know what he was doing. It makes the United States of America look weak, and it's an embarrassment. I am embarrassed of this president.
All right.
Here,
We'll be
here.
right
I
back
want
with
to
Leo
examine
and
Joe
Tommy
Biden's medical
after
doctor.
the break. We're coming. No, we'll get back to that after the break. Okay, we are back with Leo and Tommy. All right, Leo, you were talking about medical records and President Biden. Why don't you elaborate?
You know, Judge, we would have to be very naive and turn our heads to ignore the obvious fact. Tommy mentioned it, you referenced it, everyone knows. Something is wrong with Joe Biden. I'm not a medical doctor, but why don't they present Dr. Joe Biden's medical examiner? Let's ask some serious questions about his mental quickness, alertness, his physical capabilities. I want to know because he is in charge of this country and he's the most powerful man in the world. I don't want Kamala Harris to be president. I want to know if Joe Biden is physically and mentally fit to be president.
Tommy?
Yeah, well, it's a question every American should be entitled to ask, but of course the mainstream media isn't, which is really quite ironic because they spent 4+ years talking about the mental instability of Donald Trump, but once again they turned a blind eye to what is right there in front of them. You know, we talked about this last week after the stumble, after he referred to Kamala Harris as President Harris. The American people deserve answers on this, and I wish the left would pay half as much attention to the medical records of Joe Biden as they did to Donald Trump's tax returns, then maybe we could actually get somewhere. But the American people have every right to ask these questions and have it answered. It's not indecent, it's not inappropriate. It's our right to know. He's the leader of the free world. He's a leader of our country, whether we voted for him or not. We deserve these answers.
Well, I would venture a guess that no one will even bring up the issue of the 25th Amendment, which is something I constantly brought up with President Donald Trump. But, you know, there is clearly a double standard here. And I seem to recall every president having a physical and then, then they release to the public, he's well, his health as well, his heart as well, and, his cholesterol or whatever. But I don't think we're going to get an answer to that too soon. But let's talk about some of the Democrat-run cities. When we talk about the crime that's going on in this country and some of the problems, not just now in terms of crime, but in terms of the Democrat cities that have been closed down, that's taking away from individuals their ability to actually go to work and live the American dream. I mean, it's usually the Democrat-run cities, Leo, that are closed and that are not giving people a chance at working.
You're absolutely right, Judge. The Democratic city, let's be honest, they're nightmares. I live in a Democratic city, Los Angeles. It's a nightmare. The state is a nightmare. That's why we're recalling Governor Newsom. The point is very simple. The Democrats like to live the life. Pardon?
Is it going to work? The recall. Will the recall
if we get Rick Grinnell to run,
will he be voted out?
The recall is going to go on the ballot. There's only one Republican who could beat Gavin Newsom, and that is Rick Grinnell.
Okay. All right, Tommy, what do you think?
You know, I also think that we're going to recall greasy Governor Gavin Newsom. I actually fled to Tennessee about a year ago for that exact reason, and you're seeing so many flee and unfortunately bring their blue state policies into our great red states. But furthermore, I want to go back to these Democrat-run cities. We have the stimulus money that are going to these cities and these states. I believe that absolutely should have been tied to reopening. If you don't have a full reopening and an unmasking, you shouldn't receive federal dollars. You shouldn't be rubber stamping those kind of policies. We need to reopen this country. We're going to look back at this time in history as the most ridiculous time we've lived through. People want to get back to work. They don't want to wait for a check in the mail. They want to get their businesses open and get back to actual normal, not this new normal. The time has come. Look at states that have done that. Look at states like the state I'm in right now, Florida, and they have comparable rates to states like California. So it is absolutely time to reopen, and they shouldn't get a penny more until they're willing to do that.
Well, I doubt that the government will agree with you, Tommy Lahren, but a lot of people do, including me. Leo Terrell and Tommy Lahren, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Traces the steps of holy women.
By examining them, we can understand what it means to be a woman of faith today.
Learn how their experiences have inspired some of your favorite celebrities. Women of the Bible Spin, tonight on Fox News Channel.
Finally tonight, there are people who talk the talk. Some even make a living doing it. And I'm generally humored by them, the ones who think they know everything, pontificate on things about which they have no experience, no frame of reference, but still assume, presume, and fancy they know it all. Take a listen.
Look at what Jeanine Pirro, this is just outrageous, Jeanine. Jeanine, I'm looking at you. You should be ashamed of yourself. She said that these kids are a lower level of human being.
Joy Behar, a perfect example of one who talks the talk. Now, I just came back from the southwest border, having actually interviewed people on the front lines who say that children are being trafficked by the cartels and forced into a lower level of human being. The sheriff in charge of the largest southwest international border area in the United States, and one of the most dangerous where the Sinaloa cartel operates, Cochise County, says that what's happening to these children is, quote, modern day slavery. The children ultimately become slaves to the cartel. Consider this. 20% of the children brought here have no known family in the United States. Transnational cartels seize upon them, putting them in harm's way, and use and abuse these young children.